What is up, everybody? I am Michael Sandner. This is Eric Maurer. We are two best buds that met in high school. No, we didn't meet in high school. No, but we connected over some hip hop music in high school. We love to talk about hip hop music, and we decided to make a podcast about it. So this is the Banger Broadcast. It is going to be on YouTube, Spotify. We'll push all this info out on Insta too. So make sure you guys follow along. Pretty much we're going to talk about anything related to hip hop and rap music. So we like to go over some album analysis, album comparison. We'll do some album release reviews when new content comes out, but we'll have all that posted all around our pages. But this first episode, we decided to start off with a little sublet called Banger Brackets. So in this little bracket thing, we're going to have some of our top albums of a given year, and we're just going to go over those in a head-to-head kind of combat style. So similar to a championship bracket, though, this is going to be whatever content was put out that year, kind of independent from whatever happened before, whatever happened the next year. We're just going to have it about that given year. So we decided to start with 2016 because, in my opinion, that was the year of music. There was so many releases, so many really, really crucial releases that happened in 2016. So we went ahead and picked our top 10 favorite songs, which was kind of just our independent opinion. We have honorable mentions. You guys can add your input, but we're going with what we like. So we did our top 10 songs, which you see on the bracket, and we'll have this whole video posted to YouTube as well if you're listening on Spotify. But Eric will explain the ranking systems because the seating wasn't like a normal champ seating, if you will. So go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so basically we have 10 total teams or albums in this case, and then we did it in like a draft pick style. We each picked five albums, just alternating like a 1 seed you pick, and then I pick my 1 seed. So for Michael's first pick, he picked Blonde by Frank Ocean. And then for my first pick, I picked The Life of Pablo by Kanye. And then for Michael's second pick, he did Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. And then for my second pick, I did Coloring Book. And then Michael's third, he did Views. My third, I did Stoney. Michael's fourth, he did Cozy Tapes. For my fourth, I did Jeffrey. For Michael's fifth, he did The Perfect Love Tape. And for my fifth, I did Blank Face.
Amen. So with that, to keep the conversation a little bit fair and keep the actual battle between two albums a little bit more intimate, we went with like a 4 versus a 5 seed in that first round.
And the winner of that will go and play the 1 seed.
Yeah. And then like 2s and 3s in the second round. But a normal champ bracket would have like the top seed playing the bottom seed. We decided to kind of ix that because we want to make sure there's a little bit fair competition in that first round at least. So, and then go over the honorable mentions real quick. Because like I said, this was a crazy year for music. So there was a lot of stuff that didn't make the list.
We're going to have a lot of snubs in a lot of people's eyes. But here are just a couple. Lil Boat by Lil Yachty, Divine Feminine from Mac Miller. Big Baby Dram from Dram, Yellow from Amine, Savage Mode with 21 Savage and Metro Boomin, Shrem Life 2 from Ray Shremmerd, Untitled Unmastered from Kendrick Lamar, Anti from Rihanna, Awaken My Love, Childish Gambino, Lil Uzi Vert versus the World, For Your Eyes Only from J. Cole, and then Starboy from The Weeknd. A lot of big name snubs, but
I think Starboy won the Grammys for best album of the year. So I mean, like that didn't make the list here.
Best urban contemporary album.
Yeah. So I mean, even for that to not make the list, but again, that's kind of personal opinion on that one.
Our opinions, yeah.
Yeah.
We certainly had some that we disagreed with to make the short list for the 10, but
yeah. And I mean, even some of the songs I was telling Eric about, like, if you think about the songs that you heard on repeat all summer, you can just guess it from like Black Beatles from Shrem Life. You had what was it, Caroline by Amine? Broccoli. We had White Iverson was on Stoney, so we have that in the bracket. Waves by Kanye was in the bracket. So, but I mean, there was a lot of good music that came out this year. But
yep.
So, I mean, let's just go ahead and jump into the bracket here.
Yep.
First round, we got Blank Face LP versus Jeffrey. So again, whose picks were what?
Mine was Jeffrey, and you can cover Blank Face if you like.
Gotcha. So, we'll start with Blank Face real quick. Let's talk about this one.
And then I can go over the track list if you'd like.
Yeah. Go list off the tracks from Blank Face.
Okay, you got Torch, Lord Have Mercy, That Part, Groovy Tony / Eddie Kane, Know You're Wrong, Ride Out, Whatever You Want, By Any Means, Dope Dealer, John Muir, Big Body, Never Change, Straight Ballin', Black Thoughts, Blank Face, Overtime, and then Tukey Knows too.
Yeah, and so for some people who haven't given Blank Face its full appreciation yet, you got to go listen to Blank Face. I mean, I definitely have it as an underrated album in my opinion. Torch was probably my favorite song of the album, but even like Blank Face, Eddie Kane, that was, I mean, like those are some of the crazy songs. But yeah, that's the thing. People know that part, and that's what's going to give the album like most of its cred right now. But the deeper songs in there were actually really, really, really good. So you got to go check that out. And I mean, like that again, that was a personal favorite because I kind of listened to it. But even then, I don't think I really caught on to some of those better tracks until later. Like in 2016, I feel like you didn't hear much about this besides that part. And I mean, that part wasn't like, it's a great song, but like it wasn't what made that album by any means. So definitely give that some underrated underdog.
A lot of great features on this album too, with SZA and Anderson .Paak and Jadakiss and E40.
It was a crazy production, but we'll go into Eric's pick real quick. Jeffrey, what songs from there?
Yeah, I picked Jeffrey, one of my favorite Young Thug projects. It's got Wyclef Jean, Floyd Mayweather, Swizz Beatz, Future Swag, Riri, Guwap, Harambe, Webby, Kanye West, and then Pick Up the Phone. I mean, if you just look through that track list, there's at least 4 or 5 of those songs which were just like amazing, just good trap songs.
Yeah, well, you go over some of those other big songs from that year. I mean, Wyclef Jean, Pick Up the Phone were both absolute heaters from that year.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like you got to listen to all the songs here. I mean, it had a lot of songs that didn't really pick up as big as like hits in 2016, but I think Guwap, Harambe, Floyd Mayweather, those were all crazy, crazy tracks.
Yeah. Agreed.
So looking at the head-to-head battle here, I mean, like I said, Blank Face definitely has some more underrated content, but Jeffrey, I mean,
I think for the 10 songs, like if you were going by percentage of songs, which you'd classify as, I don't know, like good songs or whatever.
Banger, if you will.
Yeah, if you will. But I'd say Young Thug's Jeffrey packs the bigger punch in terms of like concentration.
No, you're probably right there. I mean, and like I said, going off the context of like what album in here could we not live without in 2016? I mean, like Jeffrey definitely had a bigger stronghold in 2016. That was part of Young Thug's best work in my opinion for sure. Like Jeffrey, and I mean, I know Schoolboy, like Oxymoron was really, really good as well. Schoolboy had a lot of good content, and this was a crazy project. And like I said, super underrated, but I don't know if it's going to win the Cinderella story this time.
Yeah. I'd comfortably say Jeffrey for this.
I'm going to say Jeffrey for 2016 picks at least. So,
do you want to share some of your favorite songs on here, or did you already do that?
From Blank Face? I mean, I think Torch is going to be a favorite song winner for me. And then Blank Face, Eddie Kane, that's probably a runner-up. But even like Big Body, like Johnny Muir, what was the one at E40? I forget.
Dope Dealer.
Yeah, dope. I mean, some of those were crazy songs, but Jeffrey has a slight edge there. So we'll go to the second little bracket of round one. We got Cozy Tapes, Volume 1 versus The Perfect Love Tape. So who are the picks here?
You can cover Cozy Tapes.
Yeah, so I mean, Cozy Tapes is pretty crazy. They started strong with Lamborghini High. You know, like that whole song was an absolute.
And I can go through the track list now if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it.
Lamborghini High, like you said, Crazy Brazy, Way High, Young Livin', Nasty's World, Money Man, Put That On My Set, Motivation Foreign, London Town, Runner, Bachelor, and Telephone Calls.
And I think lots of people know Lamborghini High and Telephone Calls. Those are going to be the two standouts for sure. But like everything from like London Town was one of my favorites on there. Crazy Brazy. It does go crazy, but
a great collab album.
Yeah, when ASAP's together like this, like I really want them to make a volume 3. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but like
in a couple of years since the last one, maybe.
Yeah, I know it went 2016, 2017, and then just haven't heard a lot from the whole group since. But I mean, like I said, that's a really, really strong contender right here. Perfect Love Tape though. So Eric, tap into the Lil Uzi's track list.
All right, yeah, we got some classics. We got Do What I Want. Of course, we get a original Uzi, Money Mitch, Sideline Watching, I Can Drive, You're Lost, Erase Your Social, Rhonda, 7 Million.
And I mean, so like in my experience, I thought Lil Uzi really came onto the scene in 2016. He also released, in our honorable mentions, Lil Uzi versus the World, and that had some of the like Canadian Goose, P's and Q's, Money Longer. Like it was, he released so much in 20, and that was, he had a release in May, and then Perfect Love Tape came out in August. So it was like he was just tossing music out that summer. But I think like Perfect Love Tape was, it definitely got more recognition. Like I still thought of Uzi as kind of like SoundCloud-ish when he first came out. And then Money Longer, that was all just like some really good trap music that I was hearing from him. But then Perfect Love Tape, I remember somebody told me like they played on Aux, what was it? Erase Your Social. And I'm like, oh, this is Uzi. Like he's gotten a lot better. He has a lot of good songs on this album. Then I checked out the whole thing, but then like 7 Million, Do What I Want. Like it was like top to bottom. Like you couldn't go through a couple weeks without listening to this over and over again.
Just like with Rhonda and then 7 Million and then Sideline Watching, Do What I Want. These songs were everywhere.
I mean, like, I'm gonna go back to like I think Cozy Tapes. If I had to pick like an album to live forever, I think Cozy Tapes for sure. But if we're looking at 2016, like, what are your thoughts, Eric? I mean, I think in that summer, in that year, Perfect Love Tape definitely was more prevalent. Like you had a lot of music coming from Love Tape, a lot of music coming from Uzi, but I mean, even just what people were listening to, you know, like nobody was blasting too much off Cozy Tapes besides the Lamborghini High and Telephone Calls. And I mean, like
I agree.
there's a lot of underrated content there.
It's
But
got
like
some good deep cuts in there, but from a surface level, like listening standpoint, you gotta just look at Lil Uzi Vert and see that there's over half of this like album songs were all like everywhere.
so, I mean, I'm probably for 2016 music, I would probably vote Lil Uzi to move forward here.
I'd say in the battle of the tapes, I'd say Lil Uzi Vert.
Yeah, and these are always hard because I just don't.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, Cozy Tapes was crazy, but
agreed.
I mean, this is still just round one. So we'll go into the round two battles here. We'll start with those 2 and 3 seeds for Views and Coloring Book. Eric, who picked which?
Your Views.
Views for my number 3.
Yeah.
And then Coloring Book was Eric's number 2 rank. So, I mean, this was another, like, go through the track list of Views. List them all.
All right. It's a big one.
Yeah, I know.
You just pull it up real quick. Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, you got Keep the Family Close, 9, You With Me, Feel No Ways, Hype, Weston Road Flows, Redemption, With You, Faithful, Still Here, Controlla, Grammys, Child's Play, Pop Style, Too Good, Summer's Over Interlude, Fire and Desire, and then the self-titled Views.
I mean, like, it was crazy. There was a lot of good songs. I mean, I'm a Drake lover. Eric's
I'm
kind
more
of a Drake hater.
Yeah.
But I mean, this album was just, I mean, he had a lot of, I think, pop radio hits too. Like he was Hotline Bling, Controlla. They were really just ruling the whole thing. That's like One Dance. It was all Drake. But if you look at the more rap style on this, I mean, like even Grammys, I think that was with Future on that. That was a great song, and that might be the number 1 song for me on that album. But again, not a lot of people know the whole track list here. But I mean, go ahead to Coloring Book.
Yeah. All right. Coloring Book, one of my favorite albums we got, or mixtape. We got All We Got, No Problem, Summer Friends, Dram Sing Special, Blessings, Same Drugs, Mixtape, Angels, Juke Jam, All Night, How Great, Smoke Break, and then Finish Line / Drown.
So again, we're gonna look at 2016 here, and I think like
Gotta be Coloring Book.
Chance was the absolute like
He was
anthem.
everyone.
He was the anthem of that year, and
everyone had the 3 hats.
That's what that was my big thing. I remember I wanted to go to a Chance concert one time in Chicago. The tickets were crazy expensive, and my parents didn't want me to go to Chicago for a rap concert, so they settled on getting me like a little Chance T-shirt. So just having that little T-shirt.
Good consolation prize.
I mean, it was like a culture thing, you know. Like I wanted to go to high school with the Chance merch, you know. Like everybody had the Chance. It was just everything over that summer. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was listening about it. But like No Problems too. That was one of those anthems that was just like only playing all
Same
summer
Drugs long. Where he goes from like into a more slower song. And it's still just a great song. And you have Angels, Smoke Break with Future, Juke Jam with Bieber, All We Got with the choir in there. It's just great. It's
It
really
was
it's full of
it was a
soul,
summer
full
vibe
of
for sure. But
hip
like
hop
even
bangers. Yeah.
yeah, everybody was listening to it no matter what time of the year it was. And I mean, like I think for Chance, a lot of my favorites came off acid rap, but Coloring Book, it really ruled the summer. I think Coloring Book's definitely going to win here.
I'd agree with you there, but we can go back to Views for a little bit if you want to pay
I
your,
was
pay
yeah,
your
I was
respects.
pay my respects real quick because Views, like Drake really does still have a hold on rap. You know, like everything Drake is doing in rap is always going to be a top album, whether it's good or bad, honestly. So I
He
mean,
does
you
make
definitely gotta.
hits.
He makes hits. He knows how to make hits. He is a hit maker, and Views had a lot of them. But for the songs and the albums that I can't live without this year, I gotta go Coloring Book.
Yep, agreed.
All right, next battle here. We got Stoney versus
Birds in the Trap.
the
Single
Trap.
P.
So I'll go ahead with Birds in the Trap. That was my number 2. Stoney, Eric's number 3. Birds in the Trap. Here, go ahead and read that set list.
All right, we'll do. Give me one sec. All right. You got The Ends featuring legendary Andre 3000, Way Back, Coordinate, Through the Late Night, Beebs in the Trap, SDP Interlude, Sweet Sweet, Outside. You got Goosebumps with Kendrick Lamar, First Take, Pick Up the Phone, Lose, Guidance, and Wonderful with The Weeknd. Just a pretty solid track list.
It's kind of unbeatable.
I mean,
We talked about this a little bit, but like I think Birds in the Travis's albums between Rodeo, Birds in the Trap, and Astro World. Every time he releases an album, it was kind of like it was a big deal. He releases content. You know, he doesn't put out any fluff. So Birds in the Trap, I think it might be one of my favorite Travis albums. I mean, it could be my favorite. I think it was but like we were talking about, the hit to flop ratio was off the charts. Like he was only putting out hits here, like Goosebumps, Through the Late Night. I mean, but even the stuff that people don't
Outside,
like toss on aux, like Coordinate. I think Coordinate is a masterclass. And then similar with Jeffrey, like it had
just a lot of
Pick Up the Phone at the end. So
yeah.
like those were on both albums, but I think people thought of that still as kind of like the Travis song, you know.
Yeah. And then Michael said it was one of his favorites, which is funny because it's probably my least favorite. Not that I don't like it or anything. I just really like Rodeo and Astroworld. But no, it's still a great project from Travis Scott. He hasn't disappointed yet with his albums.
But then Stoney, I mean, if you're thinking of
Stoney.
2016 rap, like
Yeah,
White
I mean,
Iverson,
Post
just toss
Malone
out
hit
White
this-
Iverson.
Yeah. I'll run through the track list real quick. You got Broken Whiskey Glass, Big Lie, Deja Vu, No Option, Cold, White Iverson, I Fall Apart, Patient, Go Flex, Feel, Too Young, Congratulations, Up There, Yours Truly, Austin Post, Leave, Hit This Hard, Money Made Me Do It, and then Feeling Whitney. And I mean, just going through there, like I just remember listening to this whole album from start to finish, and there's just it's too good. This is probably the toughest matchup we've had so far because
It really was.
I can remember listening to all these front to back and loving them.
And this album came out in December, and I remember it was like the wintertime rap vibes are different than summertime rap vibes. And this, like, it was part of the season. Like you couldn't go through the winter season without playing White Iverson probably every day. But even like Deja Vu, No Option, I Fall Apart. Like I Fall Apart was probably my favorite song that year. I bet if Spotify did that whole rap thing,
ballad type song,
it probably would have been my most played song of that year. But
Up There, Patient is great too. Money Made Me Do It, Hit This Hard, Yours Truly, Austin Post. Just so many just good songs. I mean, he really came out of nowhere. You thought maybe he could be a one-hit wonder when White Iverson came out, but
that's the thing. Like
he's been on the scene
ever since. It had those songs that were kind of just like everybody, took a hold of a couple. But if you listen to the whole album, there really aren't many misses at all. And the whole project it was very cohesive. He got all of his content out there in one big wrapped up work. And I think
not too many features too, which is extremely impressive. You obviously got the Justin Bieber one and Deja Vu, and then you have 2 Chainz in there too. But
this is a tough head to head. I think
it's extremely tough.
Because there's some Stoney songs, like I don't know if I could live through this year without White Iverson and I Fall Apart. But I mean, if you go back to Birds in the Trap, I couldn't live this without Goosebumps, without Through the Late Night, without Pick Up the Phone, Coordinate, I couldn't do it without those songs. Like even so, some of my underrated songs on this album, like when you go past those big hits, "Lose" was crazy.
Yeah, Lose is great.
"First Take" was crazy. "Sweet Sweet" was crazy, and then "Biebs in the Trap" was another one where I like that was a top song for me for sure.
Yeah, and I'm a Nav hater, and I still kind of like that song. So
Uh, I don't know. I think "Birds in the Trap" might have a slight edge here, just
you think
because
so?
there's too much content. There's too much
All right.
content to like. If you had to scrap one of these songs from the year, I couldn't live without all those hits. That was the year just stacked up in one album. Travis had it, and I mean Stoney had it too. But
I'm still leaning towards Stoney, but I can give you this if you're set on.
well, let's think. Like I said, what
I mean,
couldn't you live without? Like, could you go through this year without hearing that whole album by
yeah,
Travis?
I
No
think
way.
so. I think so. Well, just compared to like Stoney, I mean, I just remember Post Malone was like everyone our age's like favorite art, like new artist at the time.
It was like a big new wave coming in for sure.
Where
But
Travis Scott might not like appease to as big as an audience as Stoney might, and then just like even people who don't really like hip hop were still listening to like Congratulations, and then like
I forgot to even talk about that.
yeah, I mean it's just like when you put in that in there, I think it gives Stoney the slight edge. But I agree with you that this is tough. This is really tough.
I'm gonna give my votes going to "Birds in the Trap." I just don't like. There's too many songs on that album that I couldn't just drop off the face of 2016 and then have it be an okay
Well,
year. Like that was.
I'll cave in this time, and we'll move forward with Birds in the Trap.
It's got to be "Birds in the Trap" over
But
Stoney.
very
Close
tough
battle.
choice. Very tough choice.
All right, we'll bounce back up to the top of the bracket in the quarterfinals. We got "Blonde," a number 1 seed by me, versus Jeffrey.
And I mean, let's be real, Mike. This is
It's
a no-brainer.
Blonde.
But I'll still gonna go through the Blonde track list though, just so you guys can hear that. We got Nikes, Ivy, Pink and White, Be Yourself, Solo, Skyline 2, Self Control, Good Guy, Nights, Solo, Reprise, Pretty Sweet, Facebook Story, Close to You, White Ferrari, Siegfried, Godspeed, and Future of Free. And I mean, what more can you say than it's a masterpiece? Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about some of the more, finite details as we go through.
We'll go deep into it later, but when it comes to a matchup between Young Thug and Frank Ocean here, Frank Ocean wins by a landslide. And we'll talk more about Blonde for the later matchups.
And like I said, I mean, like, good fight, Jeffrey, to even make it to the quarterfinals, because that was a big deal for Young Thug, but it's going to be Blonde. So we'll go to the bottom of the quarterfinals here. We got Perfect Love Tape versus The Life of Pablo.
And this is a similar story like the last matchup. I'll go through the track list again, but I think, Michael, you'll agree with me here when
it's The Life of Pablo.
It's a blowout for The Life of Pablo. Moving on, but we'll still go through track list. I mean, Ultralight Beams, the album starts off with a gospel banger. Then you have Father Stretch My Hands, part 1 and part 2. And then part 2 is like a Panda remix. It's good. And then Famous, Feedback, Lowlights, Highlights, Freestyle 4, I Love Kanye, Waves, FML, Real Friends, Wolves, Frank's Track, Silver Surfer Interlude, 30 Hours, No More Parties in LA, Facts, Fade, and then St. Pablo. I mean, I can literally pick 15 of these songs as like top 100 songs of all time.
I agree, and this is like this album is one of my top 10 of all time for sure.
It's great.
It's gonna beat out the Perfect Love Tape. Like I said, Perfect Love Tape for that 2016 sound. Like if it was Love Tape against Jeffrey, I think Love Tape moves on. Like I think it's that album made a really big wave in 2016, but you got to go with Life of Pablo on this one.
All right, just going to run through these semifinals here. We have on one side, we have Blonde going up against Coloring Book. Then the other side, we have The Life of Pablo going against Birds in the Trap, Saying McKnight.
So let's tap into the Blonde versus Coloring Book real quick. So we got Chance versus Frank, and those were both really big names of that year. So, I mean, if we've already heard the songs here, but so for Blonde, it's just too consistent. Like you couldn't really, it's one of those things too where you got to listen to the whole album. Like no song is going to make you melt necessarily. Like you had those hits from like you had the hit that's from Coloring Book, whether it was No Problem or really anything else like Smoke Break. all of it had really, really big impacts on the listeners. But when you go to Blonde, like that was just new wave. Like Frank releasing Blonde, he hadn't released since 2013, and I mean, like it was
2012, but yeah.
Oh, it was so anticipated. Like people were hanging on their seat for the past 3 years waiting for a new project. And when it came out, I mean, if you were following Frank, this was the returning of the
Like Christmas
Messiah
Day times 1,000.
times a million. It was like,
Yeah.
so I mean, like Blonde's gonna edge out Coloring Book in my
You
opinion.
want to run through some of your favorite tracks from Blonde real quick?
I mean, Nikes and Nights might be my two favorite, but
but Ivy, Pink and White, White Ferrari,
Siegfried, like even the small tracks like Siegfried, just there was too much artistic like nuance in there, and
Solo, and it's reprised with Andre 3000 too.
Even just the normal
one of the
solo,
best
like
1 minute songs I've ever heard in my life.
It was crazy, and I mean, I don't know, when I'm going through Blonde, the other thing you got to think about is there was a lot of like high level production value that you got to look at the lyricism, you got to look at the, how the songs loop together. You got the album loops, the intro song loops, and if you want to learn more about that, like check out the Dissect podcast about Blonde. You'll learn a lot about the album, and it makes you appreciate it way more. But like, there's too much art in there that
the
I don't
amount of work put into this record's insane.
Like it took all those 4 years to put it out in perfection. So I think Blonde's going to edge out Coloring Book. Even though Coloring Book was the anthem of the summer, I think Blonde, it rings out way, way longer than 2016.
Better production, song quality.
But we got to go with Blonde.
Still respect
Frank over Chance. But we'll go to the bottom of this semifinal now. We got Birds in the Trap versus Life of Pablo. And again, I think, Birds in the Trap had too many hits this year to get overlooked quickly, but Life of Pablo, it was kind of in a league of its own. Like, and Life of Pablo.
Little disclaimer: Michael and myself are proud Kanye fans,
hardcore Kanye fans, and I mean, I think this is, in my opinion, this is his second best album for me. So I think
I can't even rank them, but it's up there.
I mean, like, it was the other thing you got to look at in terms of production value here for Life of Pablo. When you had, I mean, for those who don't know, the Life of Pablo is referring to like the three different types of Pablos that Kanye's kind of portraying throughout the album. So you got like Pablo Picasso, the artist, the genius. You got Saint Pablo, the gospel sound of the album, and then you got Pablo Escobar. So you got that hard
like trap, I don't give a fuck attitude.
And when you hear the album in order, like you hear each of these songs going through. You got like Ultralight Beam coming on with Saint Pablo. You got Father Stretch My Hands Part 1. Even though it has like that gospel, intro, it's still just more of like it's just
Pablo being himself. Line like, about the bleach on his t-shirt.
Yeah, it's
so it's very like.
But even that, I think that's more of him talking like Picasso, just being able to like put that creative art into one cohesive piece. But then you go to Part 2, and then it's just that trap sound. It's just straight trap sound, and that's Escobar.
And we could have a whole episode just talking about this album. That's how.
And we might. We
will.
But I think it's gonna be Life of Pablo over Birds in the Trap. And like I said, that sucks. That really sucks because Birds in the Trap had a lot of just irreplaceable songs for that year. But we're gonna go with Kanye. So now we're here in the final round. We got Blonde.
This might be the toughest matchup we've seen yet.
So I mean,
this is Kanye.
When you look at it in terms of like, these are two different sounds too. Like, well, first of all, lots of these are different than some of the other like pure hip hop rap sounds that we heard with Biebs in the Trap, with Jeffrey, Perfect Love Tape. That's a whole nother like side of the rap spectrum. But then Coloring Book had some new vibes. Blonde was a new vibe. Life of Pablo was a new vibe that we hadn't heard from Kanye like this in this capacity. But
I mean, he came from Yeezus, like an underground hip hop album,
and he does that. Like he flips back and forth. Blonde, we knew what Frank was going to come out with, but I think Life of Pablo just kind of shook the ground a lot more. And like I said, you couldn't.
I mean, still an entirely new sound for Frank Ocean too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And
I know what you're saying.
Blonde follows its own sound, its own kind of just, it's really is its own genre. We've been saying that too. It's like, it's not pop, it's not rap, it's not even R&B, it's just Frank Ocean. He needs his own genre for this kind of thing. But Blonde, when you look at those tracks, I think it was something that I couldn't live without for sure. But the other thing is, in this year alone, I don't think it was as prevalent as Life of Pablo. I think Blonde was honestly like a wine. Like it gets better every time I listen to it. But this first year, I definitely didn't grasp it like I should have. Like it wasn't it
It's
wasn't like
something
my
that
drop everything
might
out.
take a couple listens to really appreciate the full value of it.
Absolutely.
But with Life of Pablo, just remember that the constant teasing from Kanye in the months leading up to it,
Oh my
like
god.
classic Kanye. And
And
then he had the Madison Square Garden like premiere of the album where you might have seen that famous picture with like him and Kid Cudi like in Madison Square Garden. But it was just a huge spectacle as Kanye does, and I think he delivered on
and
everything.
that's the other thing. He definitely delivered song by song, but like when you talk about the production, both these albums had a lot more intricate production than people realize. And like I said, you got to listen to the whole album. So if you're going off, you can pick and choose some songs that you can't live without. But when you're looking at these whole albums, just like as one big piece of art, I mean, Blonde definitely it has it just has an aura around it. But then I mean, like look at Life of Pablo. Like when you go through those rotations of the three Pablos and you just kind of dissect it that way throughout the whole album, you got list off some of those irreplaceable hits again because you got Ultralight
I
Beam, you
mean,
got
no more
Waves,
parties in LA.
No More Parties in LA, 30 Hours, both just like
Yeah,
absolute
Waves, like
favorite
you
songs for
said
me.
before. I mean, Famous, just
I know Eric loves Famous more than I do. Like that's one of his favorites on the album. But if you go into the
even the deeper cuts like FML, which some people might not like, might listen to once but never go
Real
back to again.
Friends,
Yeah, Real Friends. Even like Facts is just if you want to hear Kanye like
I
ranting
love Facts. I
and like
absolutely love Facts. That's a hype song for me. And then
and
what
good.
like Wolves? Wolves is
Yeah,
crazy.
Wolves.
I mean, what else?
Fade, which is like a club banger.
Yeah,
It's just
Fade is
insane.
different.
You have like club songs, you have gospel songs, you have like normal hip hop songs. It's pretty impressive.
And then from the like if you go back to that hit, we didn't even list I think Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 is probably one of the biggest songs too. Like after Waves, that's probably what most people refer to. But I know first song I heard off this album, I didn't even listen to it in order, but I still heard Ultralight Beam first, and I heard it and I'm like, this is like I'm getting goosebumps again. But I like that was a new sound. That was something that I hadn't heard before in that kind of capacity. And it was like I right when I heard that song, I'm like, this album is gonna change my summer for sure.
Mhm.
And Blonde, like I think I was maybe more naive to it. Like I didn't dig that deep into Blonde yet, and so it was just kind of another crazy good album for me. But it didn't hold a candle to Life of Pablo in this year for me.
Then another thing about Blonde is that if you're feeling it some type of way when listening to it, it can be one of the best music like listening experiences you can have.
Oh yeah,
But if you're not in like that mindset, it might be hard. It might be more of like a chore to get through. I
that's
think
that's the last little component I'll throw in there is like when I look at 2016 music for me, that revolves around like what you heard at the party, what you heard on aux in the car, what you heard every day at school. Like Blonde, I think it definitely needs to be an album that you just like pop on some headphones, close your eyes, and like lay down,
there
listen
for
to it
an
alone. You
hour.
got to listen
Yeah.
to it. But where I was at in my music kind of journey, and I think Eric was in a similar point, is like you heard what the culture was around you, and for us that was Life of Pablo, and for I think most people that was Life of Pablo. Like that's the song that just kind of like carried the year from when it was released to the next era of music after that. So
Just a quick little fun fact.
go for it.
Both of Frank and Kanye have like slight appearances on both of these projects. With Frank's track, nice little interlude in Life of Pablo, and then Kanye has like a minor part in White Ferrari. I just thought that was interesting.
No, like that is really cool. And I mean, what you'll see that in a lot of these albums too. Like
Well,
there's some crossover because I mean, where was Stoney? He was in a not Stoney, The Weekend, which was on our honorable mentions, and FML.
and then Post Malone's and Fade. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of I don't know. You can definitely look at when you look at this list of albums. There's just like a lot of crossing in and out of features. A lot of people were working on the same projects, even in this busy year of music. So I mean, it was really cool to see as a whole. But anyways, getting back to this like actual head-to-head winner here, if we're looking at the top album of 2016 in hip hop music, I mean, Life of Pablo for me. It's Life of Pablo for me.
And I'll agree with you there. But I think we gave our pretty good respects to Blonde. We both appreciate it. It's still probably in our top 10 albums of all time for both of
Yeah.
us.
And like
Arguably top 5. But
when I look back on like my favorite songs ever or favorite albums ever, I mean, in 10 years it could be Blonde over Life of Pablo. For me, it's still Life of Pablo and like my favorite albums of all time right now. But for this year especially, I think 2016 would not be the same at all without Life of Pablo.
mhm.
So that's where we're Yeah, we're gonna cap it off there. Like Life of Pablo is the best album according to this bracket and according to our opinions of 2016.
Strictly our
Knock off
opinion.
Starboy for the Grammy. This was the best album of 2016. So that's what we're going to cap it off with. And this was the 2016 bracket. So just to reiterate here, we're going to have brackets for different years. We might bounce back and forth. We might do 2017. We might go in reverse order, jump back to, before 2010. Who knows? We're just going to do these where we see them fit. But even in the coming weeks of this month, we have a lot of music and kind of cultural content to dissect with. We're going to have to look at Donda 2 when that drops. We might. Dear God, I hope it drops. Don't do that to me again. But even Genius, the Netflix. There's going to be a lot of content.
We might have some, we can have like discussions after every part that comes out.
Absolutely.
We could just have a little recap on our thoughts on it.
And that's the thing. So Banger Broadcast is going to hold kind of just an overall stake in everything that comes out hip hop culture related. So whether there's new albums coming out, whether there's new conversations around albums that we need to cover, but this is going to be a segment that we fall back on every now and then, just to go over some bracket forms, do some album comparisons, and kind of just benchmark some of those top contenders and really like paradigm shifters of whatever year we're looking at. So this year it was Life of Pablo. When we post on Insta, leave a comment if there's a year that you want us to cover next. But besides that, this is the first episode. So
suggestions, critiques, any interactions will be beneficial.
We can do whatever the hell we want. We're gonna go any direction we want. So if you guys have some input, let us know. But yeah, first episode. So make sure you check us out on Spotify, Banger Broadcast on Spotify, and we'll title it as a Banger Bracket. But on YouTube, Banger Broadcast as well. We'll have our own little sub channel for the bracket section, or its own playlist. Follow us on Insta at Banger Broadcast, and then we'll be posting all this stuff all over the place. So make sure you follow along, like it, share it, give us our listens, give us our subscribers, do everything. Make sure we grow a little bit, because we want to see this carry on for quite a bit. So you all good? Right.
Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you guys for listening.
So, absolutely. So we'll end it here. Thanks, and
see you next
check back in next time.